What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today is the day we finally have in our hands the Lowrance active target transducer. This thing is like gold nowadays. It's only been out about a month and a half. A lot of pre-orders aren't filled yet. Russell Marine Products finally came through for me, so thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. So we're going to cover the unboxing and install in this video. I'm going to show you everything you need to know how to get this installed on your boat. And make sure you stay tuned. We're going to install it on my Lowrance Ghost trolling motor today. We're going to be running it on an HDS 16-inch live on the bow. I run dual 16s on the front. One of them is going to be dedicated direct to this. But stay tuned to the channel because we also have the Live Scanner Pro Elite on order, which should be here in a week or two. If you're not familiar with that product, make sure you stay tuned to the channel. That thing is awesome for anybody running a trolling motor that has spot lock, and if you use spot lock a lot, you got to check that thing out. So as soon as that product gets here, we'll be installing that as well on the front of the boat. So anyway, let's get this active target unboxed. We're going to cover everything you need to know how to get it installed on your boat. All right, so first things first, let's slide it out of the sleeve here. Just take that blue Lowrance sleeve off there. We'll throw that aside. And let me show you everything that you get in the box. So you open it up, slide that out of the way. Of course, you get your installation manual. We'll be covering everything there. This is the box or the module or whatever you want to call it that we have to mount inside the boat somewhere. You can see it has connections for sonar, Ethernet, and the power, which the power we're going to cover. There's multiple ways you can hook this up to power, and right now, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but right now there's a little bit of a glitch in the Lowrance software. I'm going to show you how to wire this up so you don't have any problems with that power issue until Lowrance comes out with the fix in the software. So that's the module itself. And then of course you have all the brackets, which we'll show you those and go over them in a little bit more detail. Those are for mounting. That's just the hardware. Another box with some hardware. And then the transducer. And also an Ethernet cord comes with this. You need that to hook it up to your graph. This is what the transducer looks like. Let me just get this box out of the way and off my lap here real quick. And I'll show you, I'll give you a look at the power cord as well. They also send you a hose clamp. This hose clamp is if you want to mount it. You could actually mount it to the head of your trolling motor. I don't think a lot of guys are going to do that, but if you choose to, nothing wrong with it. They do send you a hose clamp to get that done. And then the power cord here, which again, I'm going to show you that a little bit closer. There's been some confusion in the forums on that power cord and how to run, where to connect those wires to. So this is the transducer itself. As you can see, it's got multiple scopes on it. Of course, for your forward, your down, and your scout view. So I'll show you that a little bit closer as we get going here. So basically, first thing I'm going to do is let's get the transducer mounted to the trolling motor. We'll do that first. We'll run the transducer cord up through where it needs to be, and then I'll show you where we're going to mount the module. And again, we'll go over that power, the power cord there. All right, so let's get it done. So first step to get this transducer mounted is you're going to take the piece that looks like this out of the box. It's your shaft mount for your trolling motor. Again, we're going to be putting this on that live scanner, but we don't have it yet. It's on the way. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it on the trolling motor shaft. So when you're looking at this piece, it's held together. It's got two pieces actually, held together by they're 5mm Allen wrench bolts. All right, so you have to take those out, and that'll allow you to separate these two pieces, and you're just going to clamp it onto your trolling motor shaft like this. Now the key is when you're looking at the outer piece, and first let me mention this real quick too. This is how I always store my trolling motor. Prop in. So you can see the head of the nose of the trolling motor is pointing out, the prop is in. Just kind of pay attention to that when you're doing this install. You don't have to do it this way, but pay attention to the way you do it because that may affect your mounting. So again, I'm going to show you with the nose out, prop in. So when you're looking at the mount, the two pieces, this is obviously going to be the back piece. It's going to go on the inside of the shaft. This is the outer piece, the piece that has the arm on it. When you're looking at this, hopefully you can see it. There's a slant right here. There's a slope. It has to go, when you're mounting it, the slope goes down. Okay, so I'll put a picture up on the screen so you can see exactly what I mean, but you just want to make sure that that slope is pointing down. Okay, so the The part that's sticking out the farthest is on the top. All right, and as far as distance from the trolling motor head, for basically what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, 8 to 10 inches is roughly, from what I'm understanding, the best as far as distance goes. I'm going to go right in the middle. I've already measured. I'm going to go about 9 inches up from the head of the trolling motor. But again, this is only temporary for me until I get that live scanner anyway. But if you're going to do this permanently, 8 to 10 inches from the head of the trolling motor is how far you want to come up. So I've already made a mark on my shaft. I did that off camera. So I'm just going to take the 4 5mm Allen bolts and tighten this down, and I'll pick back up with you. I'll give you a look at the how it looks at mounted to the shaft. So this is what it should look like after you have it tightened down on the trolling motor shaft. A couple things that I want to mention. First of all, I should have showed you on the inside of these two brackets, there's a rubber piece that Lowrance included just so it doesn't mark up your trolling motor shaft. So that's a pretty good deal right there. And then the other thing that I want to show you, again, this space should be roughly 8 to 10 inches. I have mine set right in the middle at 9. One other thing is that slope that I mentioned. So let me give you a look at straight down so you can see, hopefully, right here how it looks. So the angle's going that way. Okay, so just make sure you have that on there properly with the slope and the angle going down. The last thing I'll show you is you want to make sure that you have this lined up in line with your trolling motor head. So in other words, I didn't tighten this down all the way yet just so I can show you this. So in other words, you don't want it up like that. You don't want it down like that. You want it dead center, right in the middle with your trolling motor. And that looks pretty darn good to me. I'll take a peek after I turn the camera off here, but that's how you wanna have that positioned on your shaft. All right, so let me finish tightening up those 4 5mm Allen bolts, and we'll go from there. So now that we have those 4 tightened down, nice and secure, that's on there rock solid. What you're going to do is take the transducer itself. I just have the bundled up cord setting off to the side there, and if you pay attention to the orientation, okay, so you can see how I have it setting. The cord is on this back side here. Obviously, this is the bottom, so you're going to take it and lay it on the mount just like that. Okay, and then there's notches on here, which I will give you a close-up look at those once I get this tightened down. But once you have it in position, you're going to take, they give you a spare knob that comes in that little box of hardware. And there's also a couple washers. So just take a washer, put it down on the knob, and go ahead and secure your transducer to the mount. Okay, so let me take the camera off the base there, and I'll give you a closer look at how this all looks. The other tip I'm going to give you, which I cannot take credit. I cannot take credit for this. I saw this in a different video. Paul Getty's Fishing, actually, his YouTube channel. If you guys aren't familiar with that, check it out. He's got a lot of good videos out there. But anyway, I'm going to use, it's a silver metallic permanent Sharpie, and there's notches on here, which again, I'm going to give you a closer look at once I take the camera off the base. But what you want to do is, right now they're black. That's how they come from Lowrance. Nothing wrong with that, but you're going to have to kind of look close to see them when you want to go adjusting this thing. You know, basically, right now it's in the down view. To go to forward view, you just loosen that up, go 2 clicks, make sure the other notches line up, tighten it back down, and now you're in down view. All right, I'll show you how to go into scout view as well, but that's how easily it is to go from down to forward. So I'm going to put it back in down view just for right now. I'm going to mark these notches here that I need to know where they're at, just so I can see them better when I'm on the water, and I'll give you a closer look. Okay, so these are the marks that I'm talking about here. You can see that I made a silver metallic Sharpie mark on the transducer itself, which is right here by my fingertip. And then I made a couple different silver marks here. Again, these notches already exist on here. They're just black, so they're a little bit hard to see. So doing this little tip, once again, that I cannot take credit for. So thank you, Paul Getty, for this little tip. So you can see when I have that mark on the transducer lined up with the lower mark on the mount, that's in down view. You want to go to forward, you just go, it's going to be 2 clicks, tighten it back down, and you can see over here now those 2 marks are lined up. Okay, so that's how easy it is to go from down to forward on this thing. I'll show you scout view in a second, but down here you can see on this side there's also notches. So right here you want to make a couple marks, because to be in down and forward you want these two lined up. All right, and then to go into scout, I'll just show you real quick, and then I'll give you a better look, but let me just show you the marks that you want to make here. So this is to be in down and forward view. To go into scout, what you got to do is loosen this other knob here, and you're going to rotate this until, hopefully you can see it. I don't know if the cable's in the way, but there's another notch right, you probably can't because the transducer's in the way, but there's another notch right here. And again, I'll put some pictures up on the screen just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But make those silver like that. Silver metallic Sharpie works it's going to make it a lot easier to see on the water, you know, just to save you a few seconds when you're out there fishing, to switch different views and make sure you're lined up properly. All right, so let me get the camera backed up and I'll show you scout view real quick. One more thing real quick, guys, just so you know, when you're mounting in this orientation, like I said, nose out, prop in, and mounting it like this. The other way you can tell to make sure you have it mounted properly, there's a gold temperature probe or sensor on the only one side of the transducer. Make sure that's facing up. Okay, so again, that's just another little thing to make sure you have this mounted properly so your images come out the way they should and they're not backwards or upside down. All right, so to go into scout view, right now we're in forward view right now. You can do this from forward or down, okay? But right now we're in forward view. To go into scout, all you're going to do is loosen up this bottom knob first, or the shaft knob, I should say. So loosen that up. You're going to spin the transducer like this. And again, there's another knob back there, which you probably can't see. I'm sure the cable's in the way, but I do have it painted with the silver Sharpie. I'll put a picture up on your screen. So just make sure those two knobs are matched up. Now, the other way you can tell is this bracket up, the bracket right here is, it's facing up, which again, I'll take the camera off and give you a better look just so there's no confusion. But once you do that, now you come to the transducer knob, loosen that, and you spin it out. And that transducer knob that we marked, there's a third knob back here on this bracket, on this brace. Make sure they're lined up, tighten it down, and now you're in scout mode. It's that simple to go from forward down to scout. A matter of seconds, you can change between all three views while you're on the water. All right, so that's how you do it. Let me get the camera off. I'll give you an up-close look at the scout view, and then we'll run the cable and get to mounting the module. All right, so let me give you a close-up of the scout view. So you can see back in here, hopefully you can see, there's two notches back there that I marked with silver Sharpie that have to line up. And then, again, this is what I was saying about that bracket going up. So you can see this bracket that's holding the transducer, it goes up and out, okay? You don't want it to come down and out because then your images are most likely going to be upside down or backwards. So that's how that bracket should look. It should go up and out. All right, so that's how you go into scout view, forward and down. So let's get this cable ran and we'll move on to power. Guys, one more thing before we start running the cable for the transducer. You can mount this on the port or starboard side of the shaft of the trolling motor. The most important thing that you want to make sure, whether you mount it like I'm showing you, or if you keep your trolling motor flipped the other way so your prop is out and you're going to be mounting over here on this side, basically the most important thing to remember is whether you mount on this side or this side, always make sure the cable is closest to the trolling motor shaft. And what I mean by that is, again, this is how we're going to be mounting it, so you can see the end of the transducer that has the cable on it is by the trolling motor shaft. You don't want to mount it like this, okay? That's going to screw up your images. Same thing if you're on the other side, you're going to want to mount it like this, okay? So again, the cable end of the transducer is closest to the shaft. You're not going to want to mount it like that, where the cable is out away from the shaft of the trolling motor. All right, I just wanted to mention that real quick, just because, again, you don't have to mount it exactly like I am, as far as prop in, nose out, and all that good stuff. That is the key that you want to make sure of. So again, cable in towards the shaft of the trolling motor, and I'll tighten her back down and we'll run the cable. So when it comes to running the cable of the transducer, zip ties are a thing of the past. Don't use them. I stopped using them forever ago. I don't use them for really any part of my wiring anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore, especially when it comes to transducer cables. You can do one of two things, well, a couple different things. You know, you can use some black tape. That's, you know, highly recommended by a lot of people. Or I came across these things, and I'll put a link for them down below. I got them off Amazon. They're super cheap, but and they come in a stack. They come all different colors. Obviously, I'm going to use black for this, but if you want to color code any of your wiring, you know, projects or anything, these things are awesome. They're basically just like zip ties, but they're reusable and they won't damage your cords because they're Velcro. So basically all you're going to do, and I'll show you the length of cable that you want here, but instead of using a zip tie, you can just use these things, tighten them down, snug them down, and boom, you're good to go. And again, if I ever have to re-rig, you know, you can see that cable's in there nice and tight, not going anywhere, which I'll use them all the way up. I may use electrical tape too. I'm not exactly sure, depending on how stable after I get everything ran. But check these things out for, you know, all of your other wiring needs too. I started using these things, you know, not too long ago, and I'll never go back. Now, as far as this first securing spot, what you want to do is you have to have, let me just loosen this up real quick, because I think I'm going to want a little bit more of a loop here. Again, best part about these, a zip tie you'd have to cut off. These, you just remove them, make your adjustments, and cinch them right back down. All right, and they hold nice and tight, nice and secure. Now you want a loop right here. And now as far as how big of a loop, I want a little bit more. So right now I'm in forward view. Basically, before you go any further or secure any more spots, just cycle through your views. So right now we're in forward. So let's go to down. Make sure the cable's going to be okay there, which obviously it will be. So now let's go to scout. Make sure we're good there. So we're just going to flip up to scout. And make sure we have enough cable for that, which we do. So just cycle through your views before you go any further after that first securing spot, just to make sure you have enough cable to allow yourself to give you that little bit of play. All right, so let's move on up the shaft and we'll get the rest of this cable secured. All right, guys, let me just show you where we're at. So we secured the transducer cable all the way up the shaft. So we have that loop right here that we talked about. We also have the other loop that you want to make sure you have is right here in the middle. So when your trolling motor is spinning, you don't stress your cable at all. As you can see, this is where the ghost separates from the top part of the shaft, bottom part of the shaft. So you want to loop there. I ran out of those black ties that I showed you, so we did just start using electrical tape. I got to get more of them black ties. I have other colors, but I don't want to get silly with those. So, but anyway, so we have this transducer cable secured all the way up the shaft of the trolling motor. 2 spots up here above. And then we just shot over to the trolling motor cable, shot down here. And if you're running the Ghost, you know these 2 spots right here, this spot and that spot right there. You can clip your trolling motor cable, the Ghost cable, into those clips and then secure it with zip ties. You can see I have 2 zip ties here and 2 there, securing that Ghost cable into the mount. You just want to make sure, don't put your transducer cable underneath those zip ties. So as you can see, they are not, my transducer cable for the active target is not secured by them zip ties. Okay, all I did was I took some tape, secured it to the Ghost cable right here in the middle, and then on each end. So here in the middle and here, but they are not secured by zip ties. All right, and then we just shot over. And you can see where the transducer cable here shoots into, through my precision sonar double stack mount here, down into the boat. So the only thing I've done off camera is I ran that transducer cable, shoots down into the front of the boat right there, and then I just used my wire fish. If you don't have one of these, get one. I got that super cheap from Harbor Freight, and that thing is worth its weight in gold when you're running wiring. So then I just ran the transducer cable down into the rod locker here. Now, I didn't show that on camera because that's going to vary a little bit depending on what boat you have and what brand. It's going to be similar for just about everybody. But again, Nitro gives you a lot of room to run wiring. That's one thing I will say about them. Running wiring in this boat is super easy. So I just fed my wire fish up through there and, you know, dragged my transducer cable down through and into the rod locker, because that's where we're going to be mounting this module for the active target. So basically, wherever you're going to mount this module, which a couple things to keep in mind. You want to make sure it's not really cramped. You want to have a little bit of airflow for the box so it doesn't, you know, overheat or anything like that. And that's really all there is to it. And then when you drill for your screws, just obviously make sure you know what you're drilling into. Nitro has a perfect spot right there in the rod locker that we're going to be mounting it to. Very convenient location for it. And then the only other thing I did was the Ethernet cable that came with the active target. That's right here. I just ran that down through with the active target transducer. So these two cables here, the Ethernet and then the transducer for the transducer itself, are both ran up through the front of the boat. And then, so basically, wherever you're going to mount this box, that's where you want to. That's where you're going to be running your cables to. The Ethernet, the other end of this Ethernet. Let me just get up here real quick, and I'll show you what I did. It popped out down here where all the other cables that I ran are. And because I have so many cables, if you're running multiple graphs and you have cables, you know, a couple different Ethernet cables, couple different NEMA cables, NEMA 2000 cables, what you can do is these labels, I started using these labels a little while ago for my wiring, and man, they are so worth it. As you can see, the Ethernet cable that I ran for active target, I have the label on it that says active target. You can see it right there. Okay, and I have all of my cables. I even have my Ghost 3-in-1 nose cone labeled. I have my power cables labeled. You can see all the blue labels in there, so I know what cord goes to what at all times. That not only helps keep it organized, but it also helps for troubleshooting. If you start having an issue with one of your graphs or anything like that, you don't have to go messing around with cables, not knowing which one's which. I have them labeled up here in the front. I have them labeled back at the battery. I have my cords labeled everywhere. So just keep that in mind. Little tip for you. Again, it comes in handy not only just to keep them organized, but also for troubleshooting. All right, so that's basically all we've done so far, is ran that Ethernet cord from the front to the fish finder down into the rod locker, and then the transducer cord. So let me get the we'll get in position. We'll get this box, the module mounted here, and then the last step is going to be the power cord. All right, so we got the module mounted inside the rod locker here, as you can see, using the 4 supplied screws that Lowrance gives you. The pilot hole that I drilled for the screws was a 5/32 drill bit. Perfect size for the screws. Don't mind all these wires, guys. We actually just got done running some brand new cables for all of our fish finders, so that's why the rod locker looks a mess right now with all these wires. I just got to clean everything up. I was waiting to get this active target installed before I, you know, kind of button everything up and get the wire loom on there and everything. So, but anyway, back to the module. Mounted with the 4 supplied screws. You can see we have the transducer plugged in on the far side, and all the spots are labeled. You can't mess it up. The Ethernet cable is plugged in the middle spot, and the only other port on this close side here, close to us, is the power cable, which we're going to go over right now. So the power cable, that's something that I'm seeing some confusion on, just because there's a little bit of a glitch in the Lowrance software right now. They haven't come out with a fix for it yet as of the day that I'm making this video. And so I'm going to show you guys the wiring on that power cable and what you need to do right now to make sure this thing works properly. And then finally, actually the last thing we'll cover, that right here on top, you can see there's a little bit of a little screw hole there. I'm going to show you, that's for grounding the unit. You don't necessarily have to do that unless you get interference on your unit. I'm going to ground it just right out of the gates, just to be on the safe side. I'm not going to mess around with it. You know, I'm just going to ground it. You're not going to harm anything by doing it, so I'm just going to do it, you know, right from the beginning, so I don't have to play any games with it. So, all right, let's go over this power cord here. I'm going to show you that real quick, and we'll finish up the install. All right, we're coming down the home stretch, so let's cover this power cord real quick. This is where I see some confusion on the forums. So basically, your power cable, obviously one end is going to go to the module mounted in the rod locker. The other end is your typical Lowrance power cord. It has the red, black, yellow, and blue. Blue, you're not going to use, so you can just snip it, or I'm just going to fold mine down and electrical tape it to the black sheathing. That way it's out of the way. The other 3 wires, obviously black is negative, red is positive. The yellow is what we call a wake-up wire. Usually, if it wasn't for the glitch in Lowrance's software right now, what you would usually do is take the yellow from your active target and run it to the yellow of your fish finder power cable. Again, your fish finder power cable looks just like this. It has the 4 same wires. So again, usually you would take the yellow from active target, run it to the yellow on your fish finder that you're going to be using for active target. And what that would do when you turn on that fish finder, that graph, it would send a signal to the active target via the yellow cable, and it would wake up or turn on your active target. When you turn off the fish finder, it would then power down or turn off the active target. The problem right now is if you connected the active target yellow to your graph yellow, when you turn on the graph, turn on the fish finder, your active target's going to turn on, but unfortunately when you turn off your fish finder, the active target will not turn off right now. That's the glitch in the software. Obviously not good. The active target's going to remain on. It's going to put a drain on your battery, and obviously you don't want your active target on 24/7 for obvious reasons. So what we have to do now in order to get this running properly and protected properly, until Lowrance comes out with a fix for that issue anyway, you have to take what I'm going to do. I'll show you what I'm going to do, and then I'll show you you have a couple different options, I guess. But what I'm going to do is I have a bus bar underneath my console here that's controlled by the main power switch on my boat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the red and the yellow. Now you could do one of two things. You can take the red and the yellow and twist them together and put it on. I'm going to use these little ring terminals here to connect to my bus bar. So you can take the red and the yellow, twist them together, and put them in the same ring terminal. Or what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the red and the yellow on their own ring terminals, just because once Lowrance does come out with that fix, I am going to take my yellow to my yellow of my fish finder. It's just a personal preference. I like doing it that way. So for the meantime, I'm going to have the red and the yellow on their own ring terminal, with their own ring terminal, I should say, and I'm going to run this to the positive of my bus bar. I will connect them to the same spot on my bus bar, which I'll show you all this if you're not really familiar with what I'm talking about. I'll show you all this once it's done. But the red and the yellow are going to go to the same spot on my bus bar with a 3 amp fuse. The black obviously is going to get its own ring terminal, and it's going to go to the ground or the negative on the bus bar. So I lost my train of thought there, sorry. So that's how I'm going to run this. The only downfall of doing it this way is, in order for me to turn off my active target, I'm going to have to turn off the main power switch to my boat. Not a big deal to me for two reasons. Number one, this is only going to be temporary for me until Lowrance comes out with that fix. Two, I don't think my battery is going to have an issue running the active target all day. I don't see me having a problem with that. If I do, then I'll have to reconsider, temporarily until Lowrance fixes the issue. But if you're worried about that, and you don't want to have to turn off your main power switch to turn off your active target, the other thing you can do is take your red to the positive on the bus bar, your black to the negative on the bus bar, and then you can run the yellow to its own independent switch. Switch of your choice, obviously. You would have to decide what switch you wanted to use, and then you'd have to run the switch to power, of course, as well. So that way you would independently control the active target on its own switch via the yellow wire. Okay, so that's the other way you can do it. I'm not too worried about it. As I mentioned, I think I'm going to be okay temporarily until Lowrance comes out with the fix and I run my yellow to the yellow of my graph. All right, so that's how you're going to run the power cable for this unit. Now, the only other thing I'm going to mention, in the book it says that the box, the active target box, is rated for a 3 amp fuse. For some reason, my active target came with the 5 amp. I just wanted to mention that just so you guys know. Again, mine did come with the 5, but it's rated for a 3 amp. Not a huge deal, honestly. I'm going to run it to a 3 amp underneath on the bus bar, which again I will show you once I get this all buttoned up. But I just wanted to mention that because mine did come with the 5, but it's rated for a 3. All right, so that's how I'm going to wire mine. That's the other option you have if you don't want to do it this way, again, until Lowrance comes out with that fix. So let me get this power cable ran real quick, and I'll show you the finished product. I'll show you that grounding spot that I mentioned, and then we'll wrap up the video. All right, so we have the power cable plugged into the module. It's ran behind my fire extinguisher up through that corner there. Popped it out underneath the console, which I'll show you real quick. Don't mind the wiring mess. Again, we just ran all different wiring in this boat. I have to tidy everything up once we finish this install. But it pops out up there, you can see. And this is what we're working with. So, again, the red, yellow, and black all have their own ring terminals. The blue, I electrical taped right down here I just folded it over, electrical taped it to the black sheathing. And the only other thing I did was, as you can see, I put some heat shrink tubing on each of the ring terminals. You can see the black on the ends here, and that the size of that is 3/16. It has a shrink ratio of 3:1, and it also has the adhesive in it. So as you can see on there, there's no way those ring terminals are coming off or coming loose. They are nice and secure, just about as secure as you can get. You can also solder, of course. You know, most people think soldering is the most effective way and the best way, which I would tend to agree, but I've never had an issue using these kind of connections either. And if you follow my channel, you know I do a ton of wiring. So let me get those ring terminals on their respective spots, and I'll show you what we're dealing with there. All right, guys, I'm going to try to give you the best look I can here. So the red and the yellow coming from the active target are right here, and I have them on the same post, positive post of the bus bar. Okay, so they're on the same screw right there, and they're on a 5-amp fuse right now just because I don't have any extra 3s. But again, the active target came with the 5, so I'm not too worried about it. So red and yellow on the same positive post of the bus bar right there. And then the negative, obviously the black, is over here on the negative end of the bus bar. All right, so that's how it is secured to the bar. And again, this is powered by the main switch, power switch on my boat. So none of this is getting power right now until I turn that switch on. So let me show you that grounding spot on the module real quick, and we'll get this thing powered up. All right, guys, so to ground the module, again, you do not have to do this step if you don't want to. If you want to test it out, you feel free to do it without doing this step. But if you're having any problems with interference or noise on your screen, that's when you would want to ground the module. I'm just going to do it right out of the gates, as I mentioned earlier. In order to do it, very, very simple. The threaded hole on the top of the active target box that we have in the rod locker that I showed you earlier, I'll put a picture up on your screen just to remind you. That area, you're going to take a 4mm screw, very small screw. Unfortunately, this does not come with the active target. It actually says in the instruction manual that it is included, but it is not. And I've heard from other people say the same thing, that they did not get this screw. Where I got mine was, if you have an extra 3-in-1 transducer, or if you were running your live site transducer, this screw, this size screw, is the same exact size that would hold your 3-in-1 transducer or your live site transducer to the mounting bracket. So all I did for right now, because I don't have the live site mounted on the transom yet, I just took one of the screws out of that, and that's what I'm going to use for right now until I get to the hardware store and grab one. So wiring, you're going to take a 12 gauge piece of wire or bigger. I'm actually going to use 10 gauge, but in the instruction manual it says 12 gauge or bigger. Just take a piece of 12 gauge or bigger cable, attach a ring terminal onto one side. Actually, you're going to attach on both sides, but for now, just one side. You're going to take that 4mm screw, pop it through the ring terminal, and this is what you're going to screw onto the top of the active target box in that threaded hole. The other side of your 10 gauge, again, in my case 10 gauge cable, you're going to take this to the negative side of your battery, your cranking battery, okay? So just screw one end into the top of the active target module, the other end you take to the negative side of your cranking battery, attach it to the negative side of the battery just with another ring terminal on that end. That's all you got to do to ground the module. All right, so I'm going to get that done. Not going to show it on camera. It's very simple, very self-explanatory. I'm going to get that done so we can power this thing up and make sure everything is working properly. All right, guys, moment of truth. Let's power this thing up. Again, main power switch is what this is hooked to. Let's turn her on. Let's take a look at the module. Let me flip you around here. Sorry for the shaky video here for a second. But as you can hopefully see, we have 3 solid lights during power up. The power light on this end should start blinking. There it is right there. Perfect. Green and orange. And let me just turn the fish finder on real quick and make sure it's showing up on there. All right, guys, so I just powered up all 4 of my fish finders, and I got this screen, so I just want to share it with you. I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not really sure what's going to happen here. So it just says active target sonar has been discovered on your system. There are some important configuration steps to complete before this feature is ready to be used. So let's configure now, freshwater, and finish. Oh, okay, I guess that was it. So let me see here what's going to happen. As you can see, it's saying no source. So let me go into settings. I'm sure this is just a settings thing. So let me go into settings here and figure this out. Actually, it wasn't a settings thing. I just had to go to the active target screen. So as you can see, active target is up. Now, obviously, we're not in the water, which is why it's looking the way it's looking, but that's a good sign that everything is working. Cannot wait to get this on the water. And just real quick so I can show you that the Ethernet light, hopefully you can see it, the middle light right there, whenever there's network activity, that Ethernet light will be flashing like that. I'm hoping you can see it. So the power light will be flashing green and orange after it starts up. The Ethernet will be flashing green. That just tells you there's network activity. And then the last port on the box, which is the sonar, the transducer port, that just stays lit up green when the system is powered on. All right, so everything seems to be working properly. All right, so I'm going to get this thing on the water. We'll wrap this video up. The other thing real quick, guys, too, I'm going to show you how to update your transducer itself, not the units. I do have a video on the channel showing you guys how to update the fish finders themselves to the most recent software version and also enable active target. But you also have to update the transducer itself, the active target transducer. I'm going to save that for the next video, which will be out in a day or two, so just stay tuned for that. But again, there is an update for the active target transducer itself. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up, guys. Everything went well. It looks like it's working. Cannot wait to get it on the water. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, as always, leave them down below, and I'll get them addressed for you. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care.